Welcome back to Scoop's Latest. I'm your host, Kate Ryan, and today I am here with Scott.
Hi, y'all.
On this episode, we will be talking about philosophy and how it has impacted our lives and the meaning of it. So, let's begin. What is a meaningful life to you?
A meaningful life is a life you can look back on and be like, I give it my best shot. A meaningful life is something that fills you not with pride, because sometimes people aren't proud of the things that they did, but something that you can honestly say, I did my best. That is what I think is living a full life. You did your best. You
I,
might not be the most successful, you might not be the most unsuccessful, you might be in between, but if you did your best, you succeeded.
I totally agree with that. I think finding meaning in life is just finding your purpose, exploring opportunities that are presented, and taking full accountability and responsibility for whenever you've made a mistake or whenever you need to maybe do some inner work to become the person that you want to be, whether like becoming a good person and just developing yourself to your full potential. What's good and evil?
Ah, this question. Um, I believe first off, it depends on the beholder, right? How you grow up and how I grow up is completely different, and therefore our opinion of right and wrong may be slightly skewed one way or the other. I think to really get a good definition of good and evil, I I think anyway, you should go look at the Bible because it literally says in the commandments what to do and what not to do. I think that's a great place to be like, okay, I know what what's right and wrong because these rules are set up and they're set in literal stone.
Mm.
I think a lot of times people get stuck in how they were brought up and they can't change, and that could lead to some closed-mindedness, which could lead to evil deeds, and they won't even know because from their perspective they think they're doing a good deed. Um, but that's my definition. I think if you follow the world, you're on the right track. And I think that's a good skew of figuring out if it's right or wrong because, you know, in the Bible it says don't kill, don't, you know, commit adultery, but it also gets a little bit more specific on smaller stuff. Like it mentions don't lie, don't be a liar. And you might be grow up in a situation where it's okay to lie, in your household you get lied to, or your family lies to you, or you lie to your family, and that's okay. But in reality, it's not because this is how I was raised anyway. Your word is your bond. What I tell you is basically how strong our relationship is. If I'm telling you lies, half truth, if I'm telling you lies, half truths, or anything in between, then that relationship means nothing. And I don't want it that. So I'm going to tell you the truth, whether you like it or not, because my word to you is my bond. If I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it to the fullest letter of my ability, because my word to you is my bond. And it says that in the Bible. Don't lie. Be truthful. If you do something, do it. If you say something, do it. So that's my 2 cents.
I definitely can understand where you're coming from with that perspective. I think it's setting those boundaries within yourself and with other people. I think it becomes a situation where we need to just, we're not always going to see eye to eye with each other on every viewpoint, but having respect for one another too is such a good quality to have, no matter what that person's perspective is. And I think it changes from time to time. But when it comes to good and evil, I think there's some things that are very easy where it's like, okay, don't kill anyone. Because if you kill someone, then I think everybody can agree that that would kind of make you a bad person. But then there's things where it comes a gray area. And it's, is that good or is it evil? Or are we just human?
I can think of a really good example of a gray area, actually. So, I forget the exact year, but there was a man called Gary Pluchet, and his son was being sexually assaulted by his karate instructor. And after that got found out and the karate instructor got arrested, he was being transferred to either it was a new prison or his court date, whatever it was, he was on the move. And Gary knew where he was going to be. He hid in a phone booth. He was on the phone. He hung up. He came out, shot the pedophile right in the head,
Hmm.
and killed him. And that's murder, technically. But the person he killed was a pedophile.
Mm.
We could do without that guy, in my opinion, anyway. Crazy opinion.
Y-
I don't like pedophiles.
I don't think anybody really
Um,
likes pedophiles. I think if you do, then you gotta get checked.
Absolutely. But he shot this guy right in the face,
Mm.
and he died instantly because headshot. Now, everyone there. Luckily, the cops knew Gary, so if they didn't know Gary, Gary probably would have gotten shot because he's a guy with a gun. But because the police knew him, they were like, "Why, Gary? Why?" If you watch the video, it's a crazy video,
Mhm.
and they get the gun out of his hand, and that's it. When Gary goes to court, he gets off scot free, basically. I think he had to do something with community service. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that.
Mhm.
But basically, the reasoning why he got such a light sentence was because what the court said is he was not in the right mind for good reason. The guy was diddling his child, and that's not
Mhm.
good. And he shot him. And I completely agree. But that's like a gray area because, on the one hand, it's murder.
Mhm.
On another hand, it's killing a pedophile.
So that's where it gets a little bit more complicated because then I think it's more of what you're capable of than it is anything else. Everybody's capable of different things depending on the emotional state that they're in. I think that's also part of a reason why crimes are committed. I mean, there's also sociopath and psychopath and all the scientific like the scientific stuff behind that I don't necessarily know enough to be like, oh, these are the facts, blah, 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 because I don't know the answer to that question. But what I do know is that there's just that gray area where it's something that has been debated throughout all of human history. What's right? What's wrong? And I think more if we can just take it as this is how that person is. Why don't I respect that person's boundaries unless they're harming people or in that sense, then it's different. But if we respect each other's boundaries, then I think we could just grow as a society. And it's something that we've struggled with for so long.
I agree a little bit. There's some stuff that I think are just inexcusable
Mhm.
and deserve either shame from society or
Mhm.
deserve consequence from society. Uh, Again, to bring up Gary Pluchet,
Mhm.
I think Mr. Karate Instructor, I don't even know his freaking name. He, I don't care to learn because he's an idiot. Um, I I think he got what he deserved. I think he deserved what he got. And yeah, it's street justice, but guy was a pedophile.
Mhm.
Um, like that deserves an extreme sentence or an extreme consequence. Now, if you are going around maybe stealing because your family needs food, that's more acceptable. There should still be a consequence, as unfortunate as that sounds,
Mhm.
because your family needs food and you need to steal to get food. But also, stealing is wrong. But I don't think that person should be publicly shamed for trying to get food for their family.
Because they're trying to help their kids, and it's a survival thing at that point. It's doing what I can to make sure that I live the highest quality life to my potential. So that's more where that's more the gray area, because it's not, oh, I'm just stealing to steal for fun. It's like, no, I need to do that.
Now, hypothetically, if you have all your needs met and you're just
Mm.
stealing for fun, I don't think many people steal for fun. I think maybe some people steal for the thrill of it, but most people steal to get an advance in society. But if you have all your needs met and you don't need more, then you should be publicly shamed. Like, what the heck are you doing? You have your life straight. Why are you robbing this store? You know, like the difference is feeding a family, stealing for fun. Like,
Hmm.
mm, one deserves a harsher punishment than the other, in my opinion.
I can agree with that and what you're saying. I think it all just depends on the person. Everybody has so many emotions or things that they've been through in their life, and I mean everybody goes through something. Some people do think go through it more than others. It's just everybody goes through something, and everybody's human in that sense that it's quite literally impossible to be perfect. So it's just something that we've, I think, adapted more as a society as the years have gone along. I think we've become more accepting as like society continues to grow. We're more understanding of just, I guess, being yourself, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Whereas, I mean, all throughout history, you can just see us continuing to just grow. Like, as a lesbian women, we've come so far from where we were. Like, if I was born probably maybe 10 years ago, I probably wouldn't even be able to be with someone in public. Whereas now I can get married. And I think that's beautiful, but that's one circumstance out of a million other people's circumstances. But yeah. I'm gonna bring up the question to you. What is color in your opinion? Like
Define that.
how do you think color comes to be? Because I think that's so interesting to think about how everybody just can, not everybody can see color because there's also people that are colorblind, but when it comes to color, you can visually see just this not entity, you can just see like all these different pictures, all these different elements. And there's this theory that everybody sees different colors, but we just call them the same names. And I'm just curious, like, what is your take on that?
Well, for instance, right? Biologically, fun fact, women see color better than men because biologically, hunter gatherer, my job is to kill the buffalo, your job is to pick the berries. As crazy as that sounds, that's just how we were evolved evolution wise. Like, that's just what we needed to survive. Now, doesn't really matter as much because we live in modern society. But back in the day, you know, that was like a survival thing. So women can see color a lot clearer than men can. And so there's some merit to what you're saying, but I don't think everyone is seeing the same color different. I don't think someone's looking at orange and it's actually purple in their eyes and they're just calling it
Mm-hmm.
orange because that's been orange their whole life. I think orange is orange. It always will be. But there is definitely in the sharpness of the color, there's definitely a difference,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it comes to the genders.
Huh, that's very interesting. I mean, I just feel like it's such an important part of life that oftentimes, as someone who isn't colorblind, we take it for granted. like you get to see all these different, it helps grasp the concept and the contrast and the emotion within everything that we do in life. And to just think that I'm not living in a black and white movie like how they used to produce in the old days. I just think that that's something that is so unbelievably beautiful. I have another question for you. What is your, you talked a little bit about the Bible. Tell me more a little bit on that. How, and what are your specific spiritual beliefs? Are you Christian? Are you Catholic?
So I am Catholic. I
Okay.
was born Catholic. I go to Sunday Mass. I try to go to Sunday Mass. Um, but recently, coming to college and university, I have discovered that there's more denominations. Growing up, I never knew there was like Methodist or Baptist or this and that. Like I always heard of the crazy South Bible Belt, but I never got to experience it. And it's such a beautiful and colorful world of different perspectives on all the same book. I think it's opened my eyes a lot more. It's gotten me closer to God being exposed to so many different denominations because unfortunately, at least in the area I grew up, a lot of Catholics, they go to Sunday mass every Sunday and then they don't think about God until next Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And while they're in church, they're just going through the motions. They're not really listening. They're not really taking in the world. They stand up, they sit down, they stand up, they sit down, they take the host, and then move on with their day. They're not absorbing it, but having the honor to not only visit different churches, but also perform at different churches. Like this morning, I went with the High Point University Chamber Singers to perform at Grace United Methodist Church, and I was singing their hymns, and I was learning a little bit about their beliefs, and I'm like, that kind of makes sense. I get where they're coming from, and then I kind of put that into my belief and my interpretation of God. And I think I have become a better biblical scholar because of my exposure to all these different denominations. And I think it's helped me grow in my relationship with God. Before coming to university, I thought I couldn't own a Bible.
Mm-hmm.
It was never really offered to me, and no one I knew owned a Bible. I thought people who owned the Bible at home were kooky because that's just the interpretation, that's the stereotype up north. And coming down here, I realized not only is it normal, but it's also beautiful. And then you really get that intimate knowledge of God and of the world.
Yeah, I really like what you said there about the interpretation of God and just religion in general, because there's so many different religions that have so many different takes and concepts, and you can see it adapt, and like you could see the way it has changed in its effect in society. And I think everybody has interpreted his word differently in a way. Everybody kind of has their different take on it, because when you read those words, you not you pick and choose, but you, every word can have a different meaning or a different understanding. And it's something that I have I have witnessed cuz I grew up Catholic. And then now I would say I'm more spiritual. I don't think I would consider myself committed to a domination. I think I believe in God, and I'm going to do the best I can to be the best person that I can be by just being myself and trying to just spread love to people, because in the end, I think that's really what is most important.
And that was kind of Jesus's whole thing: spread love, not hate. Sacrifice for others. That was his whole shtick. You know, and that's a beautiful thing. Um, Now I will say you need to be careful of We're about to get real spiritual, y'all. Um, you need to be careful of what you follow because first off, you have false idols. You could end up following a person and not really a specific religion. There's a lot of churches where people follow the pastor, they follow the guy reading the book, and not the guy who wrote the book. They, let's say that pastor leaves, and then half that church loses half their congregation because that guy left. They're not following Jesus, they're following the person. They might say, "Oh yeah, no, I believe in God," but when Joe Schmo left, you left too. You know?
Yeah, I think that's very important too. I think it's it's definitely has its impacts for sure. When it comes to what you follow, I think for me, I follow gratitude, and that's just the word that I would use to describe it because every day I wake up, I try to just embrace my gratitude for the things that I have that maybe some other people don't necessarily. So I think for me, that has helped me build my relationship farther with God. And for some people, it's other things, whether it's specific Bible quotes or even like even people who are atheists, they decide that because of maybe trauma or something within the church has pushed them away from his word, it doesn't necessarily make them it doesn't make them a bad person. It's just people can develop their own moral compass, and it's different for everybody.
That being said, I agree with you, but there's also another perspective I want to present to you.
Oh, of course.
So, people are bred, made, and created to worship. Not just God, everything. Everyone wants to fit in, and most people want to follow the leader and not be the leader. We are made to follow. And that's just a reality we all have to face. We all have that one person we look up to, whether that be family, a celebrity, a songwriter, whoever it may be. We we put someone on a pedestal, you know, and the question becomes is, are you putting the right people on those pedestals? See,
Mhm.
I try my best to focus on God and put Him on my pedestal. I want to follow His word, do what His plan for me is, and that's it. I don't want to be following a person because they could lead me astray. We are made to follow, we're made to worship. And I've seen people follow, like I made the example about when a pastor leaves a church and everyone leaves. They're following the pastor, they're not following God. Now, when it comes to other religions outside of Christianity, it becomes a little bit more
Mhm.
complicated because then we have to worry about, I don't know how to say this without sounding a little crazy, so I'm going to say it how I imagine
Mhm.
it. So, everyone knows there's demons, right? And demons like to disguise themselves. Are other religions, like, are the figureheads at the top demons? Like, again, this is crazy.
Mhm.
It sounds crazy, but if you really think about it, they could be. Because other than Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, most religions depict their gods in these crazy ways, right? Like inhuman, twisted, almost demon like ways. And you have to really stop and think about what exactly are they worshiping? Because the spiritual world is very real, and if you screw with it, it's very scary. Um, and you have to think about what are they actually worshiping? What are these gods telling them to do? Is it right? Is it wrong? Like, Mesopotamia, their gods told people to kill each other and sacrifice them on top of giant mountains. Does that make sense?
No, I definitely would agree that it doesn't in some sense, but it also gets to a point where it's like, is it the yin and is it the yang? Are the spiritual beings that are up there, are they just like us? We don't know. they could be imperfect as well. In a sense that in what we see when we're created, we have just this humanism. It's just something that we don't know until we pass. And I think that's also has its beauty to it as well. I think that for me, I wouldn't necessarily believe I don't necessarily believe in a hell. I believe you can develop a sense of regret within your life, and when you die, if you like continue to have that regret and you don't let it go, then that is kind of where it kind of kicks in a sense, because spent your whole life you spent your whole life not following through with your actions and your words. Whereas I don't know if I would believe that when I go and I die, that all of a sudden, just because I'm human, if God was perfect, he wouldn't just be like, I'm going to send you to hell.
Well, the reason why God doesn't send people to hell. First off, it's not like he's like, nope, you pass, you don't, you pass, you don't, you pass, you don't. We unfortunately doomed to hell, and that's scary. We are doomed to hell because way back when we ate the fruit of the original sin, and now we have that in us forever. And how we repent, because that's just what we have to do. We follow Jesus, we follow the path, and we believe in Jesus because Jesus died. He sacrificed himself to forgive us all of our sins. Because back before Jesus, what the Jews were doing is they take a goat. This is where the term scapegoat comes from. They take a scapegoat, they'd slaughter it, and then that's how they forgave their sins. They would take the innocent life of a goat and have it die for them so they could avoid damnation. And Jesus came, and then he took the place of that goat, and he died for every human, past, present, and future. He sacrificed himself to save all humanity. The only the only thing is, you have to believe in God. You need to follow his word. Only through him you can find salvation. If you aren't following Jesus, if you're not following God, then you are setting yourself up for failure, because he can't protect you if you don't let him into your life. He can't guide you to heaven because you don't let him in. A lot of people think to get into heaven, to get into the afterlife, it's works. I am a good person. I built this house. I donate money to charity. I do this, that, and the latter. That's going to get me into heaven. But if you do that, not believing in God and not believing in Jesus, then those are just actions. Because if you don't believe in God, then he can't protect you from eternal damnation. You have to let him in. You have to make him a part of your soul.
But where it gets a little bit more complicated is when it comes to the other perspective, is that you're just here to spread the love. If
Absolutely.
you're spreading love, then even if I'm just saying from the other perspective of, if you don't have that, if you want to call it a spiritual being, if you want to call it God, no matter what religion or domination or any of that, if you're spreading love and you're trying your best to be a good human being, I don't see how that could be wrong to have maybe a different perspective on life. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, I'm going to live my life to the best of my ability with gratitude. I follow the word of gratitude, just being grateful to be here and to be alive. And if I die and I go nowhere and I'm just floating in space or whatever, I could be completely okay with it, because I could just be grateful for the life that I've lived here. I think when it gets complicated is that it's beautiful. The the good and the bad both have its beauty because they balance each other out. So that's where it's kind of like, whoa. And there's so many different takes, so many different perspectives, and I just think I respect your take and your perspective on life, and then I see the next person and I'm like, I'm gonna respect that person's perspective and that person's take on life, and I'll respect the other person and that person's take on life, and I think it just all depends on your experience.
Absolutely. It's not my job to judge others. I
Yeah.
am not the judge. There's only one person who can judge people, and that's the man upstairs. And I am not the man upstairs, and I do not want that job. I treat everyone the same. I look at them and I'm like, yep, you're a human being. I'm going to treat you like a human being. It's my job.
Mhm.
It's why I was here. I want people to feel loved. I want people to feel respected. I want to show people that there's good Christians. That not everyone is crazy. Not everyone is going to say, you disagree, eternal damnation, die, die, die. Because that's not Christian. Does that sound Christian? Does that sound like something
It
Jesus would
doesn't.
say? Oh,
Yeah.
you disagree with me and your opinion's different? Burn in hell?
Yeah.
That's not what Jesus would
It
say.
wouldn't.
Jesus would be like, let's talk about it. Let's
Like,
explore that perspective. Maybe I can change your mind. And if I can't, I respect you anyway. That is how Jesus wants us to live our life. I am not going to go to anyone who either doesn't believe or disagrees with me politically or disagrees with me in any regard and be like, burn in hell
mhm,
and eternal damnation. It's not what I'm going to do. That's not what Jesus wants me to do. Jesus wants me to love everyone. Jesus wants me to treat everyone with respect. And I am not going to let my human brain stop me from doing that.
mhm,
I have to live my life through heaven's eyes. Like, if I look at my life through my own eyes, I'm going to see the negative, the nasty, the ugly. I'm going to maybe give in to the hate, maybe join the crowd. But if I look at my eyes through heaven's eyes and see it in a greater perspective, in a more open
mhm,
space, not contained to my own self, then the world becomes a lot more pretty.
mhm.
Then you start to realize everyone has a different opinion, and that's beautiful. Progress could be made there. I could talk to someone and get a completely different response. I can learn from this person something new because they are different.
Mhm,
Maybe if I locked myself in myself and I'm like, oh, they're not like me, then
mhm.
all of a sudden I'm stuck in an echo chamber. And that is the worst fate for anybody because if you're stuck in an echo chamber, you can end up becoming radicalized. And in whatever you think you believe, it's then taken to an extreme.
Yeah, and then it's like you're not even opening your mind to grasp the concept of perspective. I mean, it's what I have tattooed down my spine because it just means so much to me. Is just upholding that the ability to see that I think different opinions are beautiful. Everybody has them. I'm have we have some different opinions. You would meet the next person and another guy in another room and you'll have a different opinion from him. It's just perspective on life. It's what you've gone through. It's what you've seen. It's what your relationships look like. And it's just trying to be the best version of yourself. And whatever I think helps you be that best version of yourself, I can respect you for. If you're trying your best to not harm other people and just be almost be free in a sense that you are free of just free in your mind and try to find that joy and that peace, then I can respect you no matter what your opinion is.
I completely agree.
Mhm. Yeah, all right. Well, this is coming to the end of our episode. I'm so grateful that you guys came and took a listen to our episode today. And I hope I see you guys next time and have a great day.
Also, where can they find you?
Oh, you can find me on my Instagram handle, which is Scoops Latest. And you can find me on my personal Instagram handle at Kate J. Ryan with 2 N's.
You can find me at the Talking Stone Podcast on pretty much everything. You might need to get rid of the cast pot and just type in pod. I don't remember off the top of my head, but if you type in the Talking Stone Pod or the Talking Stone Podcast and you put that at symbol in the front, you can find me on Instagram and YouTube and hopefully wherever else I post my podcast, and you get to hear more from me.
Thank you.
And have a great day.